Thank you all. I would like to call our meeting to order. And I would like to, I guess, have a word of congratulations. This board is going to be returned for 4 more years, and I'm at least glad to see that. And just, I think everyone who ran for office in Jackson County, mostly unopposed, and will be back next year. And I think that's a pretty good statement from the citizens that they're reasonably satisfied with how the county is going and being governed, and let's have 4 more, and we'll do it. Devotion this month is District 5.
Yes, sir. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce one of the folks that lives in my district, but is a pastor over here at the Collective Church in Pascagoula, Mr. Eric Camp. Come on up here, Eric.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you so much, supervisors, and congratulations. Randy, I'm glad that you're my supervisor.
Thank you.
I voted for you again. So, I want to start off this morning. Just there's a couple of families I know. Michael Scott, longtime employee here in the county. Pray for his family, and also the young lady in Ocean Springs School District, this morning suffering a loss of a child. And I want to pray at the very end of what I want to bring you guys, just in a brief devotion. Pray for those families this morning as they grieve and deal with the loss. And, I am honored to say that on September the 11th, I'll be on a national broadcast nationwide on DirecTV for an interview in which I conducted 2 weeks ago on the content of which I've been preaching at our church, and it's about the book of Jude, and we've been talking about contending. You know, contending is a military term, means to fight, to stand, to go against, and as Christians, Jude instructs us in his letter to contend. And Jude is, of course, half-brother of Jesus, and he goes through the entire 25 short verses about contending for family, contending for government, contending, and as people of faith, we have to contend for our faith. And I commend you, supervisors and county, just for having a county to where we can stand here and do this in our public meetings, because it means a lot to me, having formerly ran for public office and served on the Ocean Springs School District. I'm honored to be in a place to where we can keep Christ the focus of what we do, especially in our government, because without that, we're going to crumble. And so thank you for your faith and your allowance of that. So again, just in that scripture, he talks about contending, standing, speaking up, not criticizing, not condescending, but contending, standing true in the word in which we believe. And so again, thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity today. And I'll just open us in prayer if that's okay. Father, we love you so much and are grateful this day. I thank you for these supervisors. Lord, I thank you for all the county, all that are in attendance today. Lord, we just pray that your will be done in all business that's conducted on behalf of the citizens of this great county. Lord, we just ask you right now to these 2 families that we had mentioned before. I pray, Lord, for your spirit to bring peace and comfort. Lord, I just pray that, Lord, that in the midst of these tragedies and these loss, Lord, that you will bring peace that we don't even know on this side of heaven, that surpasses understanding. Lord, guide the decisions that are going to be made today. Bless, honor, and favor, Lord, even as we continue to contend for what you have called us to in this time and in this season. Jesus, we give you honor and glory. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's all please be sure our cell phones are muted. We'll go now to item number 4, amendments to the agenda. Mr. Cumbus, do you have any?
I don't have any.
Mr. Morris?
I don't have any.
I have none. Mr. Ross?
None.
Mr. Bosarge?
I have 2, both for consent. First one is advertising county resources for $500 for the Pascagoula Rotary Club. And then number 2, consent, allow the Pascagoula Rotary Club to use 12 tables and 30 chairs from the Civic Center for one of their upcoming events.
Mr. Eldridge?
None.
Mr. Fulton?
No, sir.
Mr. O'Neill?
I have one I passed out corrected
You said consent?
Yeah. No, yeah,
Consent to, right?
yeah.
Consent into two.
Consent to.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, sir. We had gotten a email from Matthew Hosey on a matter that needs to go on the agenda, correct, Matthew?
Yes, sir, I was gonna make that, it's a letter of interest to the, Army Corps, for some planning assistance funding for a flood study. I was gonna ask to have it placed under, department heads, county administrator, item B, a discussion item, and possibly approve and send the letter to y'all to approve that.
Okay, that's item B under county administrator, and item 8, department heads. Are there any others? Yes, ma'am. Go.
Under consent for human resources, there's an amendment for employee information, and I've provided the amended copy to you all.
Okay, we have that, yes. Okay, any others? If not, then we need an order approving these amendments to the agenda. Motion by Mr. Cumbus, seconded by Mr. Morris. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll now move to item number 5, general public comments. Anyone who would like to address the Board of Supervisors or the county or the public in general, please come forward, identify yourself, and do it. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've been keeping an eye on Jackson County since January. And I want to commend the citizens of Jackson County. I think they've made some fine and good choices. My name's David Chancellor.
Thank you.
I'm with the Pascagoula Gun Show. I know I only have just a few moments. Randy, anybody else?
Probably get one to board.
I'll follow.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Anyway, I did come before the board in January and asking about the change for one more variance on your order for the voting, for me to hold the gun show at the Civic Center first weekend in November. Looks like the election machines all worked well in the August election and didn't have no problem, no issues with them. That was one of the issues that Mr. Glasscox had, was it was new voting machines. They did have the runoff the other day in August 29th, and they didn't set the machines in until Monday. So I come before the board again to ask you to look it over, think about it, and reconsider. Once again, let me hold this one more time, because I've got the venue changed for 2024. I will be out of y'all's way the first weekend in November. And that's basically all I want to ask. So.
Okay, that's a reasonable request. We will take it under advisement, get with Mr. Glasscox, and let you know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, Miss Cindy.
Cynthia Alman, Mr. Cumbus's district. I would like to know what the status of the hospital is at this point.
We'll let Josh answer that, please.
Sure. I mean, Mr. Colmer, do you want to remind them about the process?
Right, there's a process that's ongoing. We are subject to non-disclosure agreements. I think Mr. Eldridge understands that and can maybe provide some limited information as far as what the status is.
Okay, limited, that's fine, just.
Right. So we advertised the RFP, and we had a lot of requirements in that RFP. As we discussed before, we received several bids. We've been negotiating with each one of those bidders, and unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can say right now. Once the board, reaches a final decision, they'll make some type of an announcement and let y'all know the direction we're heading. But as long as those negotiations are ongoing, I mean, obviously, we wish we've already would have been completed by now, but there hasn't been any agreements reached, so.
Well, do y'all have it set up in the bidding process, the requirements that they need? Like A, B, C, I mean, administration, retirement, employees, all of this. Are there guidelines that they go by to submit the bid? I don't know. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
asking a question.
Yes, ma'am. It was all laid out on the requirements to put in your proposal.
Well, why in the end do they pull out?
There may be rumors of people pulling out, but, I mean, I can't really talk about who we're negotiating with and who we're not negotiating with right now.
Well, I know we were told that it was the Franciscan, I'm not sure what the name of it is, so I don't want to mess that up.
Yeah, they had put in the highest proposal. But it was just a proposal, there wasn't an agreement reached.
Okay. Then why is it announced that they are the ones purchasing the hospital if it's not an agreement? Let me explain what my question is. We're just getting, you know, we built up that Ochsner's was going to get it, take care of it, and then Ochsner's pulled out. And then we had the Our Lady of the
FMO,
Lakes group,
yes, ma'am.
whatever, come in. It was announced they were purchasing it, and then it got pulled.
It was not announced that they were purchasing it.
I think a lot of the problem comes in is because media outlets come in and they are so excited to break news that they confirm something more than it really is confirmed in reality, and they report it as a done deal.
Well, then that's
And when in
false.
reality,
That's false media.
I think media sometimes tends to be a little misleading.
Yeah, I mean, it was announced that they put in the best proposal, but it was a proposal, and until you reach a signed agreement, nothing's finalized. And I mean, this board's got to make sure that healthcare is protected, that you guys are protected, that the citizens are protected, and if they can't reach an agreement that takes care of all those issues, I mean, the hospital will continue being run, and I mean, I know the instructions from this board is to continue to run as your independent, because until an agreement's reached, nothing's finalized.
Okay.
And in every option, it requires the debt to the pensioners to be paid in full. Every option.
Okay. Not the full 154, but the
The full
principal-
settlement amount.
The
that would-
principal
right.
part.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Not the interest, okay.
Yes, ma'am. The settlement agreement from the start gave the hospital the ability to go in and pay the present value of the settlement at a 6% discount. So, I mean, whether there's a sale or there's not a sale, the hospital always has that option to go before the judge and say, here's the principal amount. I mean, just realistically, the hospital doesn't have that type of cash on hand without breaking cash covenants or jeopardizing the future of the hospital.
Okay. One last question, well, two questions, and I know I'm probably over my 3 minutes, but I'm just trying to get some idea of how to plan my life.
3
I
minutes
hope you
is not,
understand.
3 minutes is not an issue.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. What is the status of the hospital now financially?
Well, the hospital will be giving a budget presentation here in a little while, and you guys are welcome to say. I know that they were having a pretty good year this year. Obviously, it's no secret that there was a cyber attack last week, but I think they were doing a little better than anticipated in relation to their budget. But Jason, I'm sure, can, you know, address some of those questions if you have any. And I'm sure he'll hang around and answer questions. But I think Jason, can you say where y'all ended in July? How many days cash on hand? I think it was
90 days in July.
90 days, which,
Okay. And that's not an error in the books, right?
no.
That's a dramatic improvement from the low.
We all know where that got us, didn't we? I thank you for your
I
time.
think AR was at a record low, honestly, at the end of July.
Thank you. I appreciate your time for letting me ask questions. I'm just concerned. I'm concerned for myself and for all the retirees, even those that are still working. I pray every day that this hospital continues to be a shining light for Jackson County, whether it's privately owned or whatever. I just think we need this system to keep Jackson County going. It's one of the top employers, from my understanding, in the state. And I think we need to keep it that way. And be able to offer not just adequate medical care for our people, for our friends and neighbors and families. We need superb treatment. We need superb service. And I know that all of us that are retired, we work diligently to make it a world-class operation. We tried very hard to make sure that our patients and our customers, who are our guests, our visitors, or whoever, were taken care of. And I hope you'll keep that in mind. We did that for the county, and we're hoping that y'all will do the same for us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's very frustrating to sit here and not being allowed to talk, say anything. That's so unlike all of us. It's very frustrating. We're working diligently for the county, for the current employees, the retirees, current and prior, and we're gonna do the best we can for the future.
May I ask one other question?
Sure.
Who owns the hospital?
Jackson County.
Okay. Because I've been told so many different things that no, Jackson County doesn't own it. Yes, Jackson County owns it. We only owe the land. We don't owe the building. We don't own the system. But y'all are ultimately responsible. It's a county-owned hospital.
And I can tell you, I mean, nobody knows the next 5 years of health care.
Right.
You know, nobody has that crystal ball. But I think, Jason, a 12-month outlook is pretty realistic. And I know me and Mr. Taylor met with their board the other day. They gave a budget presentation, went over it with it, and the next 12 months look pretty well for the healthcare system. So, like I said, I'm no healthcare expert, and I can't tell you what the next 5 years brings. But at the moment, they have around 90 days cash on hand prior to the cyber attack, and then a pretty good budget for next year.
Okay. Thank y'all again very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know what, I like y'all. We all butted heads several times, probably gonna butt some more before it's over with. But like the preacher just got through saying, you know, people don't stand up for what they think is right, you know, if something's wrong. We got a bunch of retirees right here from the hospital that we're standing up. We want to know exactly where we stand. Well, I want to know who's negotiating. Is all 5 of y'all negotiating, or who's in the negotiation part of it?
Well, we have Raymond James, right? They were handled to negotiate on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. They do give us weekly updates to let us know where we stand, though.
What do? Y'all tell them what you allow and what you won't allow?
The board does, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you another question. You're probably not gonna answer. How much is that costing?
They have about a $10,000 a month retainer.
Okay. You know, there's a real strong rumor that this deal is fell through with this Catholic hospital. Is there any truth to that?
That goes into that RFP.
I mean, where is it on the level? Where is it at? Is it going downhill or is it going uphill? Is it looking good? Is it looking bad? That's what we like to know. Now, the reason why we want to know, Josh, is because we're heavily invested in this. Our livelihood is in this, and we're all getting old. We're all getting old. And what little bit of livelihood we got, we would like to know.
Right.
I know everything's top secret and all this, but
Right.
y'all can let us know something.
Well, I mean, I think the most we can let you know right now is that, you know, the next 12 months, they have a budget making sure that all your pension payments are going to be made. If the board is able to reach an agreement, then your pension will be paid off at present value. If they're not, then I can guarantee you over the next 13 months they'll be paid, because they have it in their budget, and there's no reason for alarm right now.
Okay.
And regardless of the outcome here, this board is, if this outcome ends up with a sale, or if this outcome ends up without a sale, this board is going to continue to explore options to make the hospital sustainable long-term, whether that means we work with the hospital system to make sure they stay viable, or if that means we work to pursue another potential buyer or a different type of agreement. Whether this succeeds or fails on this path right here doesn't mean the end, that it's not going to happen. It just means that it's going to take longer than we wanted it to.
All right, that's good. That's good to hear. Something like that to give us a little bit of encouragement. But I don't know, you're not of age yet. When you get old and you lay down at night, you start thinking about all this stuff. It starts running through your brain. I still got family I'm raising. I still got a wife I got to take care of. You know, that little $4 million a year, am I right, Mr. St. Hayes, little $4 million a year that the hospital puts in there, there's not a drop in the bucket, because it's $12 million is leaving out of our pension plan every year. So that $4 million, if we lose that little $4 million there, it's going to put us in a bind. All we got going into that plan is what the hospital owes and what the fiduciary makes investing our money. Right. Well, anyway, there's all kind of rumors out there. Y'all could clear some of those rumors up right now. I'm gonna give you a good one, okay? A good rumor is the reason why these people are backing out. It's because a certain sector of the hospital, they have to keep certain employees at the certain amount that they pay, and the hospital that was going to buy it said, no, we're not doing that. We want our own people. Is there any truth to that rumor?
I would kind of say no. I've not heard anything like that.
I hadn't either, Herbie. That's the first time I've heard that.
Now, in our RFP, Herbie, we laid out that, you know, what are you going to do what is your intentions on current employees? I mean, we also have to make sure, now, there's nothing specific about you got to keep a certain employee or here or there, but overall, we want to know in general, what are you going to do with the employees of the healthcare system? There's over 3,000 employees out there. I mean, we obviously wouldn't sell it to somebody that just came in here and started doing some type of major layoffs.
Exactly.
So we do, I mean, there is something in there. We want to know your plans and what your intents are, because you guys know your employees is what makes your healthcare system. So, but no, is it specific to one or two employees or certain, that there's no truth to that?
If you remember, I don't know if, I think you were here when we first started this process, and I think I talked about an RFP can lay out everything we want from a hospital and from the new buyer. But I also said the more stipulations we put in that RFP, the less likely of getting a deal quickly, the less money the county will receive, and the harder to close the deal would be. So now we're at that point of determining the things we put in it, how many of those things are realistic, how many aren't, and it's just a process that's got to work its way through. But we're not, whether this succeeds or fails, we're not going to stop with this. So we'll learn where we need to go and move on from there.
And if it makes you feel any, but based on the numbers that Jason's projected for next year, I see like a 0% chance the healthcare system would not, and I believe it's 5.4 million next year that's put into your pension. So everything's budgeted based on their financial position. There's no reason they won't be able to make next year's payments.
Okay, and there's one more rumor. The rumor is that the hospital, the one reason why they're backing out, I'll say backing out, is because that y'all, the supervisors, wanted to keep the clinics and rent them to the doctors. When you sell the hospital, you're gonna sell clinics, all the clinics and everything, is that all one combined thing, or is that gonna be separate?
It's a full asset sale. Now, there's a few pieces that were excluded because of litigation, but it's, with the exception of that, it would have been a full asset sale.
All right, well.
We don't want any clinics, Herbie.
And another rumor is that y'all own the Healthplex now. Do y'all own the Healthplex?
I mean, that is true. The county does own the Healthplex, and the hospital's paying us lease payments on that.
Okay. All
At
right.
a very much reduced rate than what they were paying before.
There was something else I was gonna ask you. You know, when you get old, you kinda, you remember, it just go boom. I'll think about it when I leave here. But look, I wanna appreciate y'all's time. And I think, and I hope and pray that y'all have our interests. Y'all have us, you know, whatever happens, don't let the retirement money disappear.
Mr. Tillman, let me say this. I've been a board attorney for about 3 months, and it probably has not been a week go by that I haven't met with Mr. Eldridge once or twice or talked to the outside attorneys representing the county, and the interest of health care and the employees and the pension has always been very, very important to the county. I haven't talked to the supervisors much, but I meet with Mr. Eldridge regularly. Very complicated process that the county is going through, and unfortunately, due to non-disclosures, we can't. This board has not made a statement, cannot make a statement at this point as to the status of any negotiations. But the interest of healthcare and the employees and the retirees has always been extremely important to this board and to Mr. Eldridge and to Mr. Fulton and those with the county.
And I encourage y'all to stick around for the budget presentation, so that may answer a lot of your questions on how the healthcare system's operating currently.
Well, I just thought of that question that I forgot. You know, you helped me on it. Y'all sued KPMG, and you got $20 million, correct?
I think 16 after litigation fees, but yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we had a lawsuit too. The retirees had a lawsuit. Okay, our little lawsuit, we sued Transamerica and KPMG. I forget the numbers there, but one of them come up with $8 million. The other one come up with $7 million. In other words, it's $15 million. So y'all outdone us by $5 million. Congratulations. And I thank y'all for your time.
Come on back now. But Mr. Calmer, would you clarify what you said? You said you had been involved for only 3 months. That suggests, for people that don't know, how long you have been here. How long have you been?
Yeah, I've been here for six years. I just wasn't as closely involved in the hospital matter before. Gary Evans was the one that was heavily involved. I was only involved a small portion, but now I'm fully involved.
Fully involved.
Right.
Thank you.
I appreciate you letting me come back. Like Irby, I forget too. He's smart enough to make notes, but I don't. What happens if the hospital doesn't sell?
It'll continue being owned by Jackson County, but I mean, I think there's other options that's still being explored. On all options are on the table for whatever provides the best health care for this county and puts, the hospital in the best financial position to be able to, keep up, make sure y'all's pension's taken care of, make sure we're continue to provide good health care, take care of the citizens of the county. I mean, this board's going to do what's best for the county, period, and the citizens. So if tomorrow it turns out a sale's not the best thing, then this board, from day one, they said this is not a forced sale. I mean, they're going to do what's best for the citizens of the county and the employees, the hospital, and the pensioners, and everybody as a whole.
Well, like Arby pulled brought up several rumors, and one of the rumors that I had heard was that it was now gonna be filed bankruptcy, and then it would be sold.
That's
To
100%
the
false, and I've never even heard that
It would
rumor.
be
That's somebody
sold-
sat there and made something up.
It would be sold in a fire sale. So
Yeah,
that's, you
absolutely,
know, that's,
completely 100% wrong.
Yes.
okay,
Bankruptcy is not an option.
thank you. Thank you.
Nowhere even, I mean, I don't even know.
Well, with what
that's-
you just said, but that they're gonna present in the
No.
budget, it sounds like, you know, we're not at that point, but
If y'all remember back, I think when everything kind of fell apart, was that 2011, 12, in that area. I mean, there was like half a dozen days cash on hand. I mean, they have 91 days cash on hand at the end of July. So, I mean, obviously, healthcare systems across the country is dealing with the COVID recovery.
yeah.
But, you know, I think basically from everything Raymond James has told us, and, I mean, Singing River's probably outperformed any hospital in the state in the past 12 months. So that's just totally false.
Well, can I make a suggestion? Would y'all be able to, at some way or another, make some kind of announcement on a periodic basis that would, you know, diminish all these rumors? That I know you can't say a whole lot, and I understand that, but the citizens of Jackson County don't know that, a lot of them don't know that y'all could raise our taxes. And that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt me. I mean, that hurts me even more.
Let me go ahead and address that for the upcoming. We've already published our budget, so or it'll be coming out. I think, did the first one run Wednesday? Last Wednesday. There's no millage increase related to general county millage. I don't think. I think maybe potentially there was a little school district millage increase, but other than that, there was nothing from the county side related to any type of tax increase.
I think what she's talking about, Josh, is if the bonds are not covered by the hospital, then they're covered by the taxpayers with a $5 million pledge that's already been established way before.
But that's never been used, to my knowledge.
No, and it won't be used as long as I'm sitting here. So, there's two things I'm gonna make sure of as long as I'm here. The retirement plan is paid every year or paid off, and the bond debt's paid, because I'm a citizen just like you, and I don't wanna pay 5 extra mills for a bond debt that I had nothing to do with. So, and you didn't have nothing to do with, and most everybody in this county didn't have to do with.
You'd be surprised at who blames us for the
I know.
demise of the hospital.
I know, but like I said, that's the two main goals I have, and I think I know the rest of this board has the same goals, is that retirement plan gets taken care of no matter what, bond debt gets taken care of no matter what. If that means they can't buy an x-ray machine, then they can't buy one. You know, if they can't fix something at the hospital, that means put a bigger Band-Aid on it until you get some more money to fix it. But those two things will always be taken care of as long as I'm sitting here.
Does everybody agree with what
Yes, ma'am.
Randy's talking about?
I agree with that. And I was going to say something that, and this is my perspective, I think the rest of the board probably is in a line, but if the deal goes through and it sells all the debt for the bond is paid, the pension debt is paid. If it doesn't sell for some reason, then I think what we need to do is immediately take steps to make sure everything is at the hospital is tight, the ship is tightened up as tight as possible. Things get set on in a direction where we know it's going to be sustainable for at least a couple, 3 years. Restart the process to look for another person to partner with or sell to and move down that way again. Because it could be that if for some reason we don't close a deal this time, in 6 months we'll be in better shape to make the deal happen, and actually it will be better for everybody to do it at that point. So a deal not happening now is not necessarily a bad thing. It may be a good thing. You never know what's good or bad until you actually get there and look backwards about 3 months, and then you can tell. But we're committed to doing that, and we're not going to stop if for some reason everybody leaves.
Exactly.
Well, I just want you to know each one of you are in my prayers every day.
Thank you.
Because I know that that your job is not easy, and especially when you have a bunch of retirees breathing down your neck. But we're just concerned about our livelihood. If we knew how long we were going to live, that'd make a difference, you know? But we don't. And so we have to provide for ourselves that way. So again, I do appreciate it. Thank you for letting me
Thank you.
come back to work.
Thank you. Are there any other general public comments from anyone? Okay. Oh, boy. Come on, Irby.
Come on, Irby.
The 20 million y'all got from KPMG, and we got 15 million. At 15 million, we divided up for 360 people. Right?
686.
680 people. So y'all did good.
Okay, then we'll move along to item number 6, our consent agenda. In an order to approve the,
Are we on consent agenda 1?
Yeah, let's get on school.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Cumbus, seconded by, was that Mr. Morris? Is there any discussion on the revised consent agenda? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion carries. We'll move to item number 7, consent agenda number 2. Note that Supervisor Ross is excusing himself from the meeting.
So moved.
Go ahead, we need a
So moved.
motion by Mr. Bossard, seconded by Mr. Cumbus. Is there any discussion on consent agenda number 2? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Ross is returning to the meeting. We'll move to item number 8, department heads. Mr. Calmer.
Yes, sir. Well, I had prepared a resolution for the board to consider canceling the local state of emergency for the Moss Point tornado. Since our last meeting, the federal government has stepped in, and the federal disaster assistance is going to be available. The dark money that we discussed, that program is going to be put to the side in light of the federal disaster assistance that's on its way. So I prepared a resolution to cancel that local state of emergency.
Okay, I will make the motion. We need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Morris. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Mr. Eldridge.
Yeah, I have a request to approve the 2023 recapitulation of assessments of real and personal property of Jackson County.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cumbus, seconded by Mr. Bossard. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. County Administrator, Mr. Fulton.
Right, there are 2 items here since the amendments to the agenda, and I'm going to ask Matthew to help with these. But the first one is a resolution awarding a bid to JLB Contractors for the Beach Boulevard Drainage Improvements Project, and this is actually the second low bidder on the project. And it's because of some problems that we've had with the lowest bidder, and we want to award this contract to the second lowest bidder.
That's correct. The laws for awarding construction projects are that, public bodies can decide who the lowest and best bidder is for construction projects. Twin L Construction was the lowest bidder, but after a few past projects with them where the quality of work wasn't that great, and the timeliness of the execution of it was also very far behind schedule. We just I feel, and the project engineer agrees with me, that they're not considered the best to award this project to. This project is replacing the box culvert on Beach Boulevard in Pascagoula, which is directly adjacent to the seawall. It's right where the sand portion of the beach ends, and then it's just unprotected seawall further to the east of there. So it's, to me, a pretty critical project, that it gets completed, you know, quickly and efficiently, and good work. It, you know, if it doesn't and it drags out, it's going to be a huge, you know, public inconvenience to keep detouring around that route, as well as leave our shorelines vulnerable in the peak of hurricane season that we're coming up on. So we felt like it was a good idea just to discuss this with you all directly, just so you're, you know, well aware of what our decision was, and just make sure you agree with that. And so we have a memo prepared that documents the past performance of Twin-L on 4 projects that I've been involved with directly. So if there's any other questions, or, you know, anything we need to discuss further on that, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, I had met with Mr. Hosey to review this, and requested that this be discussed separately. The Batson and Brown letter, the bid breakdown, and Mr. Hosey's memo to the board are attached to the resolution, and the experience that he has had in the past. We discussed that in detail. These other projects that, 3 of the 4 have gone into liquidated damages.
Yes, sir.
And that not only causes problems with getting getting the project finished timely for the citizens and for the taxpayers, but really increases his workload. And if it ever got to our office, it would really increase the workload. Not that that's something that we shy away from, but my point being that nothing good comes out of these projects where you start running into liquidated damages and delays. And so I have looked at it with Mr. Hosey, and from a legal standpoint, agree with his decision, if that's his recommendation to the board, which it is.
If we're not doing a good job, we don't need to be working.
Blue bid's usually not the best bid.
Yeah, we need to take real note across the county with all projects and see where we're running into these problems, and not be afraid to do that if it's something we deem necessary and legal. Because projects that drag on and on and on don't help anybody. They don't even help the contractor who got it awarded to them.
Agree. Yeah, it's something, I totally agree with you, Mr. Ross, that we should, you know, be thinking about this on every project, and we do, whenever, you know, we consider awarding bids. And yeah, it is more of a time, you know, constraint for my office, as well as the engineers who are managing, you know, these projects. And with, you know, all of our, you know, drainage and flooding issues that we're trying to, you know, get past, having projects like this drag out longer than they should be is just, you know, preventing us from going to the next project as well. So
Let me make one more comment if I can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hosey, but I think in addition to the liquidated damage issues on other projects, the amount of the bid on this project brought forth some concern as to whether or not they would be able to do the job timely and appropriately and correctly, because that bid was below the engineer's estimates.
Right. Yeah, he pointed out that it could potentially lead to, you know, disputes and claims during construction if, you know, for some reason, you know, unforeseen conditions occur, then it would just lead to more, you know, claims for payment. And yes, the second lowest bidder was a little bit higher than their bid, but was more in line with the engineer's cost estimate for it. It was only 6% over his estimate, which we adopted the engineer's estimate when we authorized advertising for this project. And so by law, we're able to award a bid that's less than 10% over the engineer's estimate.
This board has the authority to choose the next lowest bidder as long as the reasons for choosing that bidder are articulated either by the board or Mr. Hosey.
Okay, well, let's not back into this. We're doing the right thing here. So we need a motion and a second.
I'll make it.
Got a motion from Mr. Cumbest.
I'll second.
Seconded from Mr. Ross. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. You have another item? Mr.
Yes, this is the item that I amended the agenda to include. It is a planning assistance funding from the United States Army Corps, and the project that they approached me about that this would go towards is the stretch of Highway 90 and the CSX Railroad between more or less the Franklin Creek exit on the interstate, moving westward to Highway 613, but actually we're going to ask them to go a little bit further past that and get more into the heart of Pascagoula to look at how more openings under the highway and railroad could help with reducing flooding issues on the northern part of the highway along Moss Point area and some of Pascagoula. It's been discussed anecdotally in the past that I've heard that the the Escatawpa River used to, before the highways and railroads were built, could flood across this area and get into the Grand Bay estuary. And that flooding occurrence would help, re-nourish those marshes. You get more sediment coming through there. And it was just a more spread out approach to it. Well, since those highways and railroads have been built there, the floodwater doesn't go that route. It goes straight to the Pascagoula and then out through the Pascagoula. So this would be, it would just be a flooding study to take a look at that stretch of the highway and railroad to see, are there locations where we could build bridges there, potentially even long causeways that would just open it up further to allow those floodwaters, to get back to their natural path. It's 100% federally funded, but it does take a local non-federal sponsor to, submit and request it to basically get it activated for them to be able to start on this. So the Army Corps approached me about it, several weeks ago. We had been discussing it. The Marine Department of Marine Resources, MDR, had originally been talking with the Army Corps about this, and they were going to be the sponsor for it because, like I discussed earlier, they have a lot of the wildlife area in the Grand Bay near area that it would, have a lot of environmental improvements for their areas and their lands that they manage out there. But just due to, the bigger scale nature of the project, they kind of felt that it would be better, coming from the county as us being the sponsor. And I agreed with that. They've been doing a lot to, jump in and try to help with flooding issues in Moss Point, and I'm appreciative of that. But just in this particular instance, we kind of felt like it would be better coming from the county. Eventually it will, if they do find good results in the study, it will take a lot of MDOT coordination and also coordination with the railroads if projects are going to happen about, building bridges along those two routes. So that would be another point where it might be better if, the county's talking with MDOT about those issues as opposed to somewhat of an outside agency like DMR.
Now, is the railroad gonna be part of this from the beginning, so to speak?
I don't know if I'm sure they'll be contacted, but this would be just a study to see if there
Okay.
was a way to relieve those flood conditions. Any improvements that would be made, obviously, would be heavily coordinated with CSX and MDOT. So.
And I know, here in the past, in Pascagoula, some of our engineers have spoken with the railroad company about some of the crossings more in the heart of Pascagoula. And from what I can recall, they are willing to work with us about that. It may not be that they're gonna, fund 100% of those improvements, but they would allow, improvements to be made and would partner with us, at least is what I recall those discussions being. I would, imagine they would take a similar approach here.
We probably require them to have an alternate route before it ever started, though, I would imagine.
Would be some concessions.
Yeah,
Right.
So and to Irby, when he talked earlier about how did it get reported a certain way, this is a good example, because if the media heard this conversation, they would think we were gonna fix this in the next year or two. This is really the start of a decade-long process,
Oh, yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Mr. President, what you're seeking is a approval to send a letter of interest to the Corps for this study?
Yes. Yeah, we're not bound to anything further than that. No matter what the recommendations come out of the study, we could choose to participate further or not at all. Or it could potentially shift to a different sponsor, I think, also. So yeah, this is just basically to get things in motion to see what will be the best solution here.
Okay, well, we appreciate your innovation and aggressiveness. Mr. Morris said that he would like to make a motion. We'll need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ross. Is there any discussion, further discussion on this item?
Yes, I want to thank Matthew for pushing, him and Brian. We've been working with this for years, the city of Pascagoula, Morris Point. As a former alderman, we know this area, that need to be, some of this areas need to be done, and this study would help us move forward with the situation that's going on with the flood in Pascagoula, Morris Point now. So thank you, Matthew, for doing that.
My pleasure.
Okay, any further? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Okay, we will now move to finance. 3 items. Ms. Wells.
Good morning. The first item I have is the order approving the claims docket.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mr. Morris. Any discussion on the claims docket? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. One second.
Second item I have is the resolution authorizing the interfund loans for fiscal year September 30th, 2023.
Okay, interfund loans, motion by Mr. Cumbest, seconded by Mr. Bosarge. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Okay. The last item I have is the resolution authorizing the operating transfers for fiscal year September 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Morris. I will second it. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill.
Good morning.
Morning.
The first item I have this morning is a resolution of the Jackson County Board of Supervisors
of Mississippi accepting a petition for acceptance of Songbird Lane in District 1.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Cumbus,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Bossarge.
All right. You need two of us.
Yes.
Is it, Barry, that's your, is that yours?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll go.
I'll go.
Okay, Mr. Bossarge, Mr. Ross will do the inspection. We have a motion and a second, do we not? Yeah, we do, okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item I have is a resolution of Jackson County Board of Supervisors of Mississippi accepting a petition for acceptance of rental lane. Now, I think planning had a couple of issues on this one, but I think, all in all, y'all might need to go look at it. So,
I make the motion. And I'm gonna handle the other issue, Marcus.
I'm gonna reach out to
Yeah,
them
me and
also.
Joe's gonna handle the other issue.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Bossarge, seconded by Mr. Cumbest. Any discussion, further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
We need to put
two
Yeah, Mr.
inspectors.
Taylor, we need two.
Need two people
Two people, yes, sir.
to do the inspection.
This is in District 5. So.
I'm good.
Cumbest
Yeah.
and Mr. Ross. Okay, was that first vote legitimate, since we had not named the two people?
I think that's probably good enough, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, any opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank y'all.
Okay, we'll now move to item number 9 on the agenda, which is presentations. First of all, we have Coastal Mississippi. We're going to present budget and program of work. Miss Judy Young.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today, and thank you for allowing us to serve Jackson County. If I may, I'd like to introduce some of your Coastal Mississippi team. I have Patty Maher with us, and she is the Director of Communications and Outreach. I also have Chris Marshall. He is the Director of Finance. I have Duncan Ng. He is the Executive Administrator. And Zach Holyfield. He is Director of Sales and Development. And tourism is the only economic engine that imports new dollars, new wealth into a community. And this community actually had a visitor spend of $184 million. The total for Coastal Mississippi is $2.7 billion, which puts us at the 4th largest industry that supports the state economy. Jackson County employs over 2,000, actually 2,216 as of the last study, and contributes to the state and local taxes $22.1 million from Jackson County tourism tax revenue. I've included for you to look at, I have a summary of the short-term rentals on a map. I have a summary of the budget, explanations of white paper, the program of work, as well as the most recent audit. We have an audit annually, and the results of compliance testing disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that require to be reported under government audit standards. Again, we do these annually, and they have been the same result every time. Some of our highlights are that the Mississippi Tourism Association awarded us a Gold Best Public Relations Strategy or Campaign at the Governor's Conference, and we were the finalists for the North American Travel Awards Public Relations Activation. Now, this is important because other finalists were Celebrity Cruise Lines, Virgin Atlantic, and others of that caliber. So we were one of the top 5 internationally. We are also an accredited destination management program by the Worldwide Destination International. We are one of 8 worldwide that have been awarded this designation for 5 consecutive years. When you go through your packet in the program of work on page 8, you'll find the economic information that I just provided that is broken out by county as well as summary for the entire state and the role we play there. We have had multiple RFPs that have gone out. We wanted to make you aware that we have awarded a new advertising agency, Maris West Baker. They are a Mississippi agency. They are also doing our media buy. We're pleased about this because not only does it mean that we have an opportunity for new and more dynamic creative, but we have a Mississippi company that will be able to, for lack of better words, eyeball. We'll be able to see them. So it's a different level of accountability. We recently have been working on our Strategic Plan 2030. We have had over 11 stakeholders within this county have one-on-one meetings with those consultants, and we'll have more to come that will be done during Zoom. It's an important plan for us. It deals a lot with the development of the tourism product and the opportunities that we have across the region. So I have provided you with a white paper, which is green, that is a budget summary. You may or may not recall that last year there was a little bit of lag in the Jackson County revenues. That was because a code had been changed by DR, and that same code hadn't been communicated to DFA. So the money was always there, but we didn't rectify that until after the end of the fiscal year. In the last fiscal year, our expenses were lower because we had quite a few open positions on our staff, and we cut expenditures mid-year to make sure that we were in good shape for the revenue reconciliation issues. The FY23 budget, we did hire for a few open positions that were on the approved organizational chart by the commissioners, as well as short-term rental compliance, and our expenses are low as a majority of the positions were filled after January 2023. We put a lot of efficiencies in place financially moving into the next fiscal year and the end of this fiscal year. Our director of finance really took that on, and as you can imagine, we have subscriptions for platforms. They were isolated in all the different departments. We moved those back all to administration to negotiate a better rate and to kind of, as any finance person would like, get rid of $15 charges. So we moved those around, and we did that in many of the line items. So we're looking forward to a very clean, very efficient, subscription-based financial reporting going forward. For FY24, our proposed budget estimate includes forecasted earned interest of $240,000, which was board approved, and a financial strategy thanks to many of the Jackson County commissioners that you've appointed, specifically past President Greg Cronin. He's been really an amazing commissioner that's mentored our finance director to move money where we need it to go. So the revenue projections without the forecasted earned interest are $42,000 or 0.66% over FY23 estimated actual. We have several grants that Coastal Mississippi incurs expenses and then is reimbursed. We are expecting approximately $650,000 in reimbursement from an EDA grant where we fronted those expenditures. The actuals from FY23 are reviewed in November, and budget amendments are considered in March. And as I spoke before, several accounting classifications have been updated to enable concise reporting and efficiencies in purchasing. I believe you'll see us moving forward with improved opportunities for visitor industry stakeholders to partner with Coastal Mississippi in grants and cooperative efforts of marketing and public relations support and festivals and events support. Those grant opportunities opened in May, closed the end of July, and will be awarded this next fiscal year. Between those two different grant opportunities, we have budgeted nearly $250,000 where we will be providing support to area festivals, events, and specific marketing efforts. And then sales department has generated over $5 million in business and over 50,000 attending delegates in the fiscal year to date. That's a lot of information. I appreciate your time, and I'm ready to answer any questions. And we are happy to answer them anytime, all year round.
I think we appreciate all the work that y'all are doing. Tourism is so important on the coast, and maybe it's beginning to get more recognized as a function in Jackson County, and I'm delighted to see that. We have plenty of things to see for tourists, and thank y'all for doing a great job of helping us out.
Thank you, sir. Look forward to working with you.
Right. Okay, we'll move to item B under presentations, Jackson County Healthcare Plan Renewal, 90-degree benefits. Mr. Lockhart.
We've got a lot to cover today, so I'll try to go as quick as I can, but don't let me go over something that's important to the board. This year, if you open the presentation, some of the things that I'm going to be going over is listed on the first page. It's the Premier Health PPO contract. Your contract had a 3-year contract, which is expiring this year. So before I could do anything else with reinsurance or anything else, we had to negotiate that contract. I know Justin Rickley from the hospital met with Josh and Brian and myself about 3 months ago, and we've been going back and forth for quite a while trying to get this resolved and put to bed, and we have, and I'll go over that in just a second. But we've got your profit and loss, your cost analysis, your reinsurance quotes, your total rates for current renewal. We looked at quotes from Blue Cross and United for you. We've got your teledoculation and your flexible spending. That's all part of your renewal for the benefits for October the 1st coming up. If you'll turn the page, this is your PPO contract with Singing River / Premier Health. Again, this was something that had to be done before we could proceed with trying to finalize your healthcare plan for this year. Keep in mind your PPO contract has 2 components of it. The first component is the Singing River Hospital side, which is both your inpatient and outpatient for Singing River. The second component of your Premier Health contract is the physicians side of the contract, and I'll kind of talk about both of those. And this little paragraph that I'm saying here on the sheet talks about Singing River has agreed to renew their contract for another 3 years. The hospital has looked at it and agreed to renew at the same as the current contract. So your hospital inpatient and your hospital outpatient, the way that's structured through DRGs and discounts and that type of stuff, are the same as they were for the last 3 years. Certainly everybody wants to look at rate increases on that, but the hospital was able to come back and hold those rates for another 3 years. The more difficult part was the physician component of the Premier Health contract. From talking to Justin, there was about 7 CPT codes, and there's thousands and thousands of CPT codes that we pay on behalf of the health plan. There were 7 CPT codes that Justin recommended that we went up on, because those are the ones that get the most complaints from the physicians on those 7. So Justin sent me those 7 with the recommendations, and those 7 are on the next page. Those CPT codes are listed on the left side of the page. You've got your current contract is the second column. I listed Medicare at 120%, the third column, and then what we finally agreed to on the far right column that says new schedule. Now, they certainly wanted a lot more than we agreed to here, but we ended up leaving the first 3 CPT code's the same as current, even though they asked for more. I looked at Medicare rates. I also looked at some other PPO contracts, and I felt like those three were in line with where they currently were. So we've got Justin and I looked at it and finally agreed to leave those three the same. The next four you can see are increases. For example, 99-212 was $48. It's going to go to $54. So these are small increases, but they're warranted. Because a lot of these contracts that we have for the physicians for these CPT codes, a lot of these CPT codes haven't changed in 7 or 8 years. So I understand why they want a rate increase, but these are the 7 we looked at. When Justin and I agreed, he had to messenger this out to the physician clinics in Jackson County. There's 75 to 80 different physician clinics. When he messengered those out to the clinics, there was 10 clinics and another 150 something codes that they came back and said, we'd like you to go up on these also. When you start looking at individual codes with individual doctors, you're opening up a can of worms, because when you change one CPT code to one doctor, that changes it for all the doctors. Because when the CPT code's in our system, it's in that system for every doctor we have in that Premier Health network. So those came back, and I basically just said we're not gonna look at those. So Justin has measured that back out, that our original 7 that we looked at were the 7 that we were going to look at, and we're changing 4 of those. So I think we're good to go there. Justin is working up the Premier Health contract that he will get to your board attorney to review before your next board meeting. So I just want to let you know I'm very comfortable with where we are with Singing River agreeing to keeping their rates the same, and we're only changing 4 codes on the physician side. So I'm very comfortable with where we are going forward for your renewal of your contract. Again, this renewal with the PPO contract has a lot of bearing on my reinsurance rates that I go to market with. So that does help with the renewal rates I'm about to show you. So that will again come back before you in 2 weeks for board approval for another 3-year contract with Singing River Premier Health PPO contract. That'll come back to your attorney for his approval in 2 weeks. Any questions on the PPO contract at this point? Okay. Next thing, if you look at what we call a profit and loss, this is what we look at every year. This is a quick snapshot of how your plan's working. You can see on the left side your total funding month by month from October of 22 through August of this year. You have your total funding, your fixed costs, or both your reinsurance, your pre-cert, your case management, your administration fees, all those things that are fixed every month. That's listed in that second column. The third column is your claims that you paid every month, and then the last column is the profit and loss for the month. If you go down about halfway down the page, you see the totals there. Right below the totals of the reinsurance reimbursements, you've had 3 reimbursements for a total of $190,000 from the reinsurance carrier. Now keep in mind, the $190,000 came back this year during this calendar year, or your plan year from October to there. But these reimbursements are really claims that we have from the prior year, but they came in during this year, so we always show it like a bank balance, so that 190 is in there. Below that, you see your RX rebates. Over the last 4 quarters, you've gotten $497,000 back in rebates. So if you look at that, you're looking at about $328,000 ahead this year, so you're in the black. I know past several years we've been in the red. We've always scratched our head, what can we do to make it in the black, and this year we're finally in the black. So that's a good positive note going forward that we do have numbers in the black this year. All right, next page is the what we call our cost analysis. We like to look at the total claims by employee, by spouse, by children, to see how your costs are really stacking up. It's good for HR or Josh to look at that, to see what are y'all paying for cost through payroll deductions versus what the actual costs are. So it's a very good tool for your finance people to look at and see whether you're doing the right thing. This basically shows you the total claims divided by the number of people divided by 11 months, gives you the average cost for those categories. Is the first set of numbers. If you go down to the second set of numbers, it shows how many employees are in each category, your average cost, adding your fixed cost, gives you your total cost less your employee contribution. So this is just informational purposes. That's great for HR and your finance department to kind of look at where we stood for the past 11 months. Next page, which is your boxes across the top, is your reinsurance rates. Those, it has 4 little boxes going across the top. You're currently with Fidelity Security. You're paying roughly $492,000 a year for reinsurance. Again, that caps the county's loss at $200,000. The county's responsible for the first $200,000. Any claim that goes over $200,000, the reinsurance company picks up. So if you had a $2 million claim, your maximum liability is $200,000. The reinsurance will pick up the rest. If you look at the next box, that's your renewal with your current company. They're giving you a flat renewal this year, so they're not going up on your rates at all, so it's the same $492,000. If you look at 2 other options to the right, instead of $492,000, the next one was $666,000, the next one was $707,000. If you look at the bottom box, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 different carriers that looked at our renewal rates from our current carrier and said they can't even be competitive. So they just declined the quote. So we've looked at a number of different carriers. And the reason your current carrier can be so competitive against the market is you had, reinsurance-wise, you had a very good year this year. You didn't have any spec claims so far. You may hit one this last month of the year, but you hadn't hit a spec, hadn't gone over the spec deductible this year. So they can use those profits from this year to offset some of the premiums going into next year. That's why they can be so much lower than the other carriers that are providing quotes. So that will be our recommendation, is to renew with your current carrier at the same current rates you have. The next page shows those rates for the middle column of the page is your current funding. Going down the page, you see the single rates are the top number. Employee and spouse is the next one. Going down, you see employee children. Toward the bottom of the page is your family. This shows you by category. Reinsurance rates are $35, $37 for single, and if you go down to family, it's $90.23. That's per employee per month to have those coverages. You see their admin fee, your pre-cert fee, your teledoc behavioral health and dermatology, and then your funding that you have for claims. All those numbers for this year are going to remain the same, so we're not going up on any of the fees that we're charging you this year, and we will provide you with another 3-year contract to match your PPO contract.
We seeing anything that shows the teledoc has diverted people from actually going in and saved money in the plan?
That's in here. I'll show you that. Good question. So anyway, the last year you had one laser at the bottom of the page. You had somebody that had a laser of $275,000, meaning that one person had a $275,000 risk instead of the $200,000. We got a couple people that are asking a couple questions on. That will still be determined with what we hand in the next couple of days to the carrier to make sure whether we have a laser this year or not. Every year it seems like you have 1 or 2 small lasers, and you may or may not have one this year, but the reinsurance rates are set. Okay, the next thing is we did go to market this year. We went to look to see if the counties, what you're doing is the right thing to do. So we looked at Blue Cross Blue Shield. We also looked at United Healthcare. When looking at Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is the next page in your proposal, you can see toward the top of that page that the quote that Blue Cross provided is a fully insured quote. They're showing you a $1,000 deductible, a $15.25 copay for doctors, your copays there for your drugs. They're showing your rates going across the page, $687 for single all the way to $2,130 for family. When you multiply those rates out and compare those to the rates we just went over on the previous page, the Blue Cross rates are about $376,000 higher than what you're doing under a self-funded plan. The other thing that does not take into account is the $479,000 in drug rebates that you've gotten back. So the numbers that I'm showing you didn't even include that. So you're about $704,000 ahead of this Blue Cross quote that they're showing you. So it's not even competitive, but you don't know till we look. So we did look at Blue Cross, and it's not competitive. A couple pages over is United Healthcare. I'm not going to sit here and go over it. It's a bunch of pages with a bunch of numbers on it. Admin fees are $28 there. They would use our reinsurance quote on this particular thing, so the reinsurance would be the same, but there's a lot of fees on this page. If you don't use their PBM, which is their drug vendor, they charge $8 more PPM. If you don't use their reinsurance carrier, there's another $5 PPM. There's fees all through here that just make this cost escalate when you're looking at a self-funded plan through United Healthcare. A lot of the things on this proposal, I don't even understand, and if I don't understand them, that makes me squirm in my seat. So we've looked at United and we've looked at Blue Cross. Neither one of them come close to what you're doing today. So I'm pretty pleased with what we've done. And typically a group your size, you should be self-insured because carriers are trying to make a profit on you. On your self-funded plan, you're not trying to make a profit. You're trying to get the best set of benefits for your employees at the lowest cost you can. And this year you've done that as you've got profit left over in your plan. All right, the next thing, if you flip a couple pages, it says telehealth utilization report. This is your teledoc report. I'm going to run through this real quick. First thing listed here is you see there your visits on the left side of the page. It says report period. That's for this past month. You've had 27 visits. For your general medicine, you've had 6 visits for mental health, and you've had 2 visits for dermatology. Year to date, you can see the numbers. You've had 194 visits to date, 28 mental health, and 6 dermatology. And when we say year to date with Teledoc, Teledoc does everything based on calendar year. So this is not from October. This is only from January 1st through current. So you spent probably less than $20,000 on this, and you can see the savings alone just from your general medicine has been estimated about $102,000. So Teledoc is still working for y'all. It always has. It's a very great benefit for the employees because they don't have to go to physicians and have co-pays to doctors. They don't have to sit there and wait in their doctor's office or wait till next week to get a visit. This gives the employees and their family members, and that's a good benefit, even if they only have single coverage at the county. Telemedicine covers the employee, spouse, and kids, even if they have single coverage. That's important because a lot of the dependents under the county's plan don't have any other coverage. So Teledoc may be the only benefit they have. So it gives them access to a physician 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they call in with a sinus infection, bladder infection, poison ivy, all those type things, they can call a doctor, and the doctor can call in a prescription drug that they can then go to their local pharmacy and fill a prescription drug through their county's drug program.
Our 6-year-old used the visual. We did Teledoc within 10 minutes. They called back so quick I didn't think it was them.
Yep.
They got on FaceTime. They looked at his lip. They determined that he'd gotten in some kind of bush that he was allergic to. We went and got a cream. He put it on his lip and he was fine. It was that easy. I mean, it took about 10 minutes.
This is a benefit that when we do open enrollment meetings, people tell us they like and they utilize the telemedicine. It's a great benefit. We have it in every self-funded plan we have because the numbers are there. Even if it was break even, I would do it anyway because it's such a valuable benefit for the employees. If you look at the next page, it tells you what he just spoke about.
He was one of the 6, I guess.
During this reporting period, which was last month, the average callback time was 4 minutes.
Yeah, it was quick. I thought it was a telemarketer, actually.
Yeah. Year to date, from January to now, it's 5 minutes. We normally tell everybody average callback time is 16 minutes. It was a lot slower a couple years ago when COVID was hitting because everybody was calling Teledoc. Nobody wanted to go inside the doctor's office or hospital. So back then, we were getting 20 and 30-minute delays because so many people were doing it, but they've gotten that down to less than 5 minutes or so. So that's very, very good.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What is the general outcome from a mental health call?
What is the outcome?
Yeah,
Well, the mental health is an important benefit through this because you've got a lot of people that know so many people in the local community. They're embarrassed or whatever it be. They don't want to go to a local mental health provider because they're scared they may see somebody there. The doctor may know them, whatever else. So through telemedicine, it is a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist that will set up meetings with them, and they can go through and visit. You know, they may have once a week, they may have once a month, but it gives them access to either video or verbal communications with that psychiatrist to talk them through things. And it's something that the county needs to have and has had for, we put that in, what, 2 years ago?
Several years ago, we started the EAP program. Yeah. And we had a contract with Singing River Mental Health at one time, and we chose this option instead of renewing that contract. You know, in the future, going forward, if we feel comfortable going back with them, we can do that. But for the time being, you know, we're doing the telehealth with the mental health.
Okay. All right. The next couple of pages, I'm not going to sit here and go over them, but it's the same information I just gave you on mental health and dermatology, so I'm not going to sit here and read numbers to you when you can read it yourself. The last page of the presentation is your employee flexible benefit plan. That's where they can take monies out of their pocket pre-tax to pay for any unreimbursed medical, dental, vision expenses. This is something the county's had for many, many years. This will be renewed at the same benefits as it is last year, so that's just part of the employee benefit package.
When you roll over 570, is that we can roll over?
Yeah, the new law for this year says you can roll up to 610. So that was the one question I was going to ask. Do you want to leave it at 570 or do you want to increase it to 610?
Do we have anybody losing anything?
You typically have a couple people that will lose $30, $40, $50 here and there. I can run that report to give you an exact amount of who it is. We typically try to reach out to them and let them know they have that left over, but as long as they got less than 570, that does roll over till next year. That's a change in the law that happened 4 or 5 years ago that they do roll over, but you could opt to do 610. Right now it's at 570, but that's.
What does it take to have the debit card where you don't have to file all that? You just run the debit card with the money credited to it?
It's easy to do. I think the county's never done it, and Brian can answer me if I'm correct. I think the county doesn't want to do it because you're advancing people money, because they take it out during 26 pay periods a year, and they're eligible for that money up front, so the county would be fronting them money if you do it that way through the card. So we've always done just you file for it and we reimburse it. But you could certainly do either way. A lot
Does
of
it cost anything more to do it that way?
Get it back, you know, if an employee leaves or whatever.
But you could go to the doctor and
Yeah.
submit
You
the
can
bill and
still
still leave and you
yeah.
wouldn't get it back.
Yeah, you can still get it back.
You get the money back within like 30 days once you file it anyway.
The only added cost you'd have is for the ID, the debit card itself is usually a dollar or something like that a month, so it's very inexpensive.
And then that way it eliminates that question of what's reimbursable and what's not, because you can go run the card. If the card pays for it, it's good. If it doesn't, then
And again, the card, on the flexible spending, the card is good for the employee, spouse, or kids, even if you only have single coverage with the county. So that card can be used for any unreimbursed medical, dental, or vision for the entire family. So that doesn't have to be decided today, but if y'all want a card, we can implement that at any time. So I think the renewal, with everything being totally flat this year, is a great renewal. I think the budget, Josh can tell you, I think didn't you budget the same amount for this year's renewal? So that would coincide with what we're telling you here. So the hospital contract, the Premier Health contract, will come up again before you in 2 weeks when the hospital gets us the contract for Mr. Comer to review. Really, the only thing I need approval on today is to renew the reinsurance contract so we can get that bound. We don't want something to pop up at the last second and it be a catastrophic claim, so we just need that to be approved so we can lock that renewal in at the same rates that you currently have this year. So that's really the only board approval I need today.
Make the motion to read it before somebody changes their mind.
I'll second. Got a motion by Mr. Cumbus, seconded by motion by Mr. Bossard, seconded by Mr. Cumbus to renew. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries.
I have one question. It's just because I don't know something. On the drug copay, $10, $25, $50, and $100. One is probably for name brand. One's not name brand. What are the other two?
You got generic, then you have a preferred brand name, which are usually those multiple source brand name drugs. Then you have a high tier brand name drug, which is usually a single source. There's only one brand name available. And then the fourth category is your specialty medications. Those high cancer medications, those real expensive medications.
Okay.
So that's been in place for a while, but that's been done for a reason. And the only thing I may have is to get Brian to sign something on the reinsurance, but that's, if the board's already approved it, and it's good to go. So we'll have the hospital contract and our administrative contract back for you in 2 weeks. Thanks y'all for your time.
Thanks.
Item number C, under presentations, Small Business Administration Disaster Recovery Update from Ms. Sally Graham.
I am Sally Graham, and I am from the SBA Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. We're deployed here along with the team that has the Small Business Administration Business Recovery Center at the Riverfront Community Center, as well as a small team of SBA folks inside the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center. Under SBA's disaster declaration, anyone in Jackson County who believes they have damage from the tornado and high winds are eligible to apply with SBA. So that means anyone outside of the 3-mile by 6-mile path of the tornado, if they believe they have damage, they are eligible to apply for physical damage disaster loan with SBA. As of September 4th, homeowners SBA has approved $517,800 in low-interest disaster loans for homeowners, and for business owners, $213,800. Right now, we have 18 owner applications in process and 10 business applications in process. It's important to know, to get the word out, that if FEMA has referred a homeowner or renter to SBA, to follow through on that step. The federal government's answer for long-term recovery is a low-interest loan. So sometimes that homeowner or renter will be referred to SBA, and despite our name, our Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience, we help businesses of all sizes, homeowners, renters, and private nonprofits. In the event that they are referred, there's no fee to apply for the low-interest loan. There's no obligation to take the loan. You can put it on hold for 6 months while you negotiate with insurance or otherwise look at other ways to repair or replace your real estate or damaged property. But if SBA declines that application, we send the disaster survivor back to FEMA for other needs assessment. So in effect, if they don't follow that step in applying with SBA, it's possible that additional federal support that disaster survivor is not going to be eligible for. In addition, up to 20% of an approved homeowner or business owner loan can be increased by up to 20% for mitigation improvements, and they can make that decision within a 2-year period. Effective for any business and nonprofit across Jackson County. So in all of your areas, there is the economic injury disaster loan, and because of this declaration, businesses and nonprofits are eligible to apply for that, and that's a loss of revenue. Sometimes businesses and nonprofits don't see a loss of revenue until months down the road. That deadline is not until May 13th, 2024, but it's important to get that word out to businesses and nonprofits throughout Jackson County. And under SBA's declaration, we also provide that low-interest working capital loan to the contiguous counties to Jackson County as well. Are there any questions?
I'd like to just thank you for coming out here and getting updated information. I met with you a couple of times and sit in up at the Recreation Center with you a couple of days. And just thank you for coming in to get a board update on that.
Thank you, Supervisor Morris. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. He'll be right back. He'll be right back. Oh, okay. Okay, it is now time to hear from that name called Jason that everyone's heard all morning, Jason, Jason, Jason. Jason McNeil from Singing River Health System, along with Lauren St. Pay, the interim CEO. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, and first of all, thank y'all for having us here. I want to address Ms. Alman's response earlier, and I think it's important, and I thank her for bringing it up, and that was, her, I think she may have left, but actually brought up the importance of the quality of care that we're providing here at Singing River. And to be honest with you, that is what we wake up first and foremost at the top of our mind. Even when we're dealing with cyber attacks, I could not be more proud of the team focusing on the quality of care. Again, that will continue to be our focus as we move through this. Our mission is to improve health and save lives. That being said, even though we're a not-for-profit health system, if we do not have a margin, we can't fund that mission. So we're very in tune with that. All of our managers, we discuss this on a monthly basis with regards to making sure we're operating as efficiently as possible as we move through our day-to-day operations of improving health and saving lives. So with that being said, the budget that Jason is going to walk through is a conservative budget. We're confident in our ability to meet these numbers as we move forward. We have strategies that are in place that we've been working on for several months now ahead of next fiscal year. Many of them are already in motion, and again, will help us meet our objectives and ultimately meet the budget that we're going to present to you here today. We've also went ahead and removed some of those one-time cash flows that Jason will talk through, that again, making sure we have a conservative budget. Any type of one-time revenues that we have in this coming year will be lagniappe and will just make us stronger. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason to walk through what we have prepared for you guys today, and hopefully you'll agree with where we stand. So Josh mentioned earlier, we're in a strong financial position in July, 90 days. Again, the cyber attack will have some impacts on that, but we've got plans in place to try to mitigate those impacts as well. But we're going to continue to be a strong organization, and hopefully y'all approve this budget. With that, turn it over to Jason.
Thank you, Warren.
Jason,
yes,
I know we talked about the 91 days cash on hand, but for those listening in, I mean, how many days? I mean, how much cash is that? I mean, round about 90 days.
It's around $1,450,000.
Okay, so that times 90 is, we all ended what was like 125 million in July in the bank.
It's about, yes, about $129 million in July.
Million. Yeah.
And Mr. President, if you don't mind, I could give a quick update on where we stand year to date this fiscal year. I know there's been a lot of questions about how we're operating currently. So if you'd like me to do that, I'd be more than welcome to.
I say sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so like was mentioned earlier, we are on a very strong financial footing right now. Throughout this whole past year, the one thing that this management team has continued to really stress is let's continue to operate as if we are going to remain independent. So no matter what happens with any negotiations, we want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to be good fiscal stewards of our resources and making sure that we are doing as well as financially as possible. So if you look at our operating margin through July, we've got a little over $3 million net operating margin. And if you know anything about what's going on in healthcare right now, there's very few health systems, especially health systems our size, that can say that. You're reading in the news all the time about massive layoffs and everything else. We have not had to do that, and the way we're operating right now, we have no reason to believe that we will have to do that. Like I said, we have a positive operating margin in a sea of a lot of health systems that have a lot of losses. And there's a lot of hard work that went into this past year. We've done a lot of work on the revenue cycle side. We've done a lot of initiatives to reduce our expenses. And, those have really bared fruit over the past fiscal year. So, as Josh mentioned earlier, our AR is the lowest that I can ever remember. It's a little almost $56 million, which last year at the time of our audit, it was like $65, $66 million. So again, those revenue cycle efforts and that we've done to really get that cash in the door, make sure we're being paid appropriately for everything we do is really can be seen in the reduction of AR and the financial results that we've seen so far. We will end July, or have ended July with 90 days. I will say, we had 3 payrolls in August, and the cyber attack that we just had, we haven't actually dropped a claim since, I believe, August 19th. So you are going to see a delay in cash in September. Because, if you don't bill, you can't get in the door. Obviously, there's a lag between when you bill and collect. So there is going to be a significant cash delay. But as we get all those claims out the door and have an opportunity to collect that in probably in October, November, December, that cash will come back to the system. So I just wanted to give you all a little heads up about that. If you turn to the third page in the packet, and let me put this on.
And back up just a second.
Yes, sir.
On the operating budget for 2024.
Yes, sir.
So in 2022, the salary and wages was 214 million. And for 2024, you're anticipating 241 million.
Yes, sir.
So $27 million over 2 years. What's going on there?
I've actually got a slide completely dedicated to that. If you want to walk through that, because I knew salaries was going to be a question.
Okay.
So we will certainly cover that. Yes, sir.
So is the Medicare 2024 rules plus 4.3 million a recurring revenue stream? Okay.
Yes. So the inpatient rule starts in October, and the outpatient rule starts in January. So if you look at this, this slide on page 3 is really the big ticket items that are driving our budget for this fiscal year. Coming up in 2024. In the current fiscal year, we did receive some emergency MHAP funds to the tune of about $7 million, and we also had received in December a letter from the Division of Medicaid saying that we did not have to pay back the $7 million related to the 2017 DISH overpayments. So we had a liability on our books for that for $7 million. So when we got that letter that said we no longer had to pay that liability went off our books and ran through our income statement. So between the emergency MHAP and the elimination of the DISH liability, there's about $14 million. This coming up fiscal year in FY24, CMS is going to give us in the December or January timeframe about $14 million for 340B. What happened there is back in 2018, CMS reduced drug reimbursement for drugs purchased on 340B for about 30%. That was obviously a huge hit to our revenue as well as hospitals like us. Well, there's been a lot of court cases that have challenged that, and finally the court ruled that CMS did not have the authority to reduce the reimbursement for those 340B drugs. So they're coming back and have issued their remedy that they're going to pay hospitals affected a lump sum payment to make us whole for those drugs from 2018 and 2022. And that amount's going to be about $14 million. And like I said, we project that the rule stated it would be done in about December or January. We should receive that payment. Every year Medicare does update their rates. They issue rules letting us know what's going to happen. So this year with inflation and everything, there's about 3.8% increase in inpatient and outpatient roughly in that arena, which we project will generate about a positive $4.3 million. With pharmacy inflation, there's about $5.2 million, and then the impact of dropping down to RRC for 340B, we estimate is about $2.7 million. We have essentially eliminated almost all our contract labor. I think we had one external nurse, let me clarify, external nursing contract labor. I believe we currently have one person. That should all be gone next fiscal year. So when you're doing a comparison, that should be a pickup of almost $4 million. We are projecting to have merit increases of around $3 million. The commercial rates that we've negotiated with the payers should increase about $4.6 million, and then we're not projecting to receive any FEMA funds in FY24. Now, we do have multiple submissions to FEMA to the tune of over $20 million for contract labor. But until FEMA says that they're going to pay us for that, we have not factored that into this budget. So if we get it, obviously we'll come up here and celebrate with you all, but until that happens, I'm not going to have it on my financial statements, so, or my budget. So those are the major drivers for the FY24 budget assumptions. So then if you turn over to the actual budget itself, just to kind of orientate everybody to this, what I have here is I've shown FY22, which is about 2 years ago, and then I've got the FY23 budget, fiscal year to date June annualized, fiscal year to date April annualized, and then our budget for FY 2024. The reason I've got April annualized is because that's really when we started this budget process and what the baseline of the budget was built on. You know, obviously it takes us a few months to put this budget together, so you've got to start with the best data you have at the time, so April is where our cutoff was. Now obviously as we talk to the departments and see how things go over the next few months, we do factor that into the budget, but our baseline budget is beginning with April. As you can see here, our net patient revenue, that very first top line is projected to be about $550 million. And that may seem like a lot, but that's only 6.1% over the annualized April number, but we've been doing quite a bit better since April. So that's only a 3.8% increase over the June number. And again, you know, that's not just comparing apples to apples. We do have net new increases in revenue for FY24 with the rate increases that we discussed, with bringing on physicians and additional service lines that adds incremental net new revenue to our operation. So we're budgeting a total operating revenue of about $591 million. On the expense side, we'll talk.
Real quick, Jay.
Yes, sir.
On that other operating revenue, does that $40 million, does that include the $13 million from the 340B settlement?
No, that will go into our net patient revenue.
Okay. Okay, so that'll hit net patient revenue.
So yeah, so we've got that hitting there. You're going to have that $14 million, the MHAP and the DISH, that's net patient revenue as well. That $40 million is the vast majority of that is our retail and specialty pharmacy business. We've done a great job, and Heath Thompson and Lisa Fertizzi have really led an effort to grow that line of business with our specialty pharmacy and our retail pharmacies, which yields quite a bit of revenue and profit for the health system. Like I said, we'll talk about salaries and wages on the next page, but you know, all the other expenses for the most part, and I'll call out a few that are essentially, you know, flat. Drugs is up with that inflation factor and some of the RRC 340B impacts. You'll see contract labor is down by about $7 million. So what you're going to see also in salaries is, while we've transitioned away from external contract nurses, our contract labor has significantly gone down, but then you're going to see a shift to salaries as those people are now employed. Now, obviously, they're going to be employed at a much lower rate, but you are going to see a shift to our salary buckets, which is going to explain some of that variance that we're going to talk about in a second. The other big one really is hardware and software maintenance. There's a reduction there. We had to implement GASB 96 this year, that similar to the prior year when we brought all our equipment leases onto the balance sheet. This brings on our subscription-based software agreements onto the balance sheet and reduces hardware and software maintenance, but then you'll see that down below the line later on. So we are projecting to have an EBIT of just shy of $43 million, or 7.2%, a net operating margin of $157,000, which we hope will beat that. Like I said, you know, year-to-date July, we were at over a little bit $3 million. So as Lauren mentioned earlier, we feel like this is a nice conservative budget. And then you'll see our non-operating revenue going down by about $5 million. The bulk of that is FEMA and other COVID-type grants that we're not budgeting for going forward. But like I said, we hope we will get additional funding for that, and then a budget of excess margin of around $8.6 million.
One more question on depreciation, Jason. In 22, you had about $34 million. Then in 23, annualized, you had $30 million. And then it goes back up to 35 million in 24. Any idea why depreciation?
A lot of that is the wonkiness with the GASB
With the Gatsby
87.
list?
So those leases were on the balance sheet, and now a lot of those expenses are hitting depreciation and amortization, where before they were just running through the income statement as rental expense. And then on the next page, this is where we provide a breakdown of salaries and wages. So here, one thing I do think it's important when you're looking at, our labor is, especially in the environment we've been in now where we have had so much contract labor, is to show salaries and wages and contract labor together, and then the how they compare year over year and into the past budget. So if you can see in the FY24 budget with contract labor and salaries, we're projecting that to be almost $69 million. So that overall with both those buckets is only a 6.5% increase from 2 years ago, and then about a 3% increase from the budget, as well as annualized June and annualized April. And then, so I did call out to your point, Mr. Bosarge, if you look like at fiscal year to date April, we are annualizing about $225 million in salaries. We're budgeting for $240 million, so there's about a $16 million delta right there, and I show the breakout here. So 3.1 million of that is related to those merit increases I mentioned under the assumption. So obviously we have a lot of good employees. We want to keep them around. Employee retention is something that we're really focused on. So to be able to give them a nominal merit increase every year is something we always strive for.
Would you say that's mostly the boots on the ground folks, or is administration getting some of that too?
It'll be everyone will get it. So it'll be, generally somewhere between 2 and 3% and across the board based on how you're rated on your appraisals. We have about $2.7 million in new physicians. Obviously, a lot of these things I'll mention in a second, there's a revenue associated with a lot of this as well. We are going to have a full year of actually employing CRNAs. That's about $1.1 million. We employed the ER physicians over in Gulfport for a period of time until they could transition over to another group. So not having that expense is going to save us about $1.7 million. We've got about a little under $600,000 for campus police. That's our new security efforts. We're going to have some new machines to kind of monitor, looking for weapons and things like that in the ED. Those have to be manned. So that's directly related to trying to keep our employees safe in those vulnerable areas. We do have a workforce development of about a little under $700,000. Again, that's related to all the workforce development programs that we've been talking about in the new building and all the excitement around that program. The shift from contract labor is going to move about $3.8 million from the contract labor line up to salaries and wages. Again, that's going to be a net benefit to the health system by about $3.8 million. But that will, if you just strictly looking at salaries, will increase salaries. Got about $700,000 in market increases for clinical areas that have been under market. We did bring on a cardiology clinic that started in April, so we'll have a full year of that in this budget. Obviously, having our own cardiologists employed is a great benefit to the health system.
So is that going to be at all 3 hospitals or just one?
Well, there's one clinic, but I think they mainly practice at Ocean Springs and a little bit of Gulfport, correct? Yes. And then we're opening up in some new endoscopy clinics, population health. That's where we reach out to people that have been discharged, members of our community, make sure they're doing everything they're supposed to do to stay healthy, reduce readmissions, make sure that we can keep people out of the hospital that need to stay out of the hospital, just from a health perspective. ENT clinic, and then a new orthopedic clinic. And so we'll say out of this $16 million, it's covered by over $12 million in revenue. So, obviously things like the some of the raises in the campus police, there's not necessarily an ROI over that, except for keeping our employees safe and for retention efforts, which to me that there is a good ROI with that. Just might not necessarily show up in the financials, but the overwhelming majority of this is covered by revenue. And again, like I said earlier, that $12 million in revenue also goes to the increase in year-over-year revenues that we've budgeted.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that a moment. You know, we're talking about increases in people.
Yes, sir.
But up until this instant, we've ignored the fact that revenue is up significantly more than increases in labor. Is that due to the new physicians, the new clinics?
It is due to that.
They're just generating.
There are ROIs on these physician clinics and the physicians. There's also, like I said, we negotiated. You know, you got a $3.4 million, $4.3 million increase from Medicare. That drops straight to the bottom line. You have the commercial increases I talked about earlier, about $4.6 million. So right there, that's just additional rates that we're going to be receiving that we can help to use a lot of this and increase our revenues.
But we should be tooting your horn because new people are generating additional money.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let me ask you this, so like on the cardiology clinic, does that make us does that make us competing with the current cardiologist, or are they on board with us starting our own clinic?
So we currently, I can speak to that.
Okay.
So we currently,
Because that's a lot of money going out to start that clinic.
It clearly is, and so we actually, our cardiologists actually, for the most part, are, civilized competitors.
Okay.
And we bring physicians through all the time that make comments to that. But there are also private equity companies that are out there that are trying to, come in and, take advantage, especially of community-owned health systems where you got these physicians that are in private practice. So they do target that. We have seen that in cardiology, so that is to shore up our opportunity moving forward.
Good. I think it's a good move. I just want to make sure that our current cardiologists are okay with it.
And these were actually the group that he's referring to that is employed or were actually in market. So these aren't new cardiologists that we brought.
Okay.
What about the workforce development piece? I saw you got some money budgeted for that. When do you anticipate that coming online, and what does that look like?
So the actual program's already started. Now, as it gets built out and we've got the building online, we expect it to continue to grow. But we already do have classes beginning to graduate and starting to see, those employees come through the health system.
So the budget's for a continuation of that?
Yes.
Correct. And one benefit of that too is actually, these individuals that graduate through the class are signing on to work with us for a couple of years. So again, it's maintaining the workforce that we've got, pretty much growing your own. And that's one thing this pandemic really highlighted for us. We've got to do something different with regards to our employees and growing.
What's the schedule for the building construction and kind of the ramp up of the program?
They have broke ground, obviously, and I want to say it's about a 18-month process build out.
So what kind of obligation do they have if they go through that program?
2 years. 2 years.
So Warren, let me ask you another question on the clinics. So is there any, so I know when Lee was there, he was talking to Ingalls about trying to get them to come back to the hospital and when it came time to renegotiate their contract with that current provider that they use. Is there any ongoing, on your end, to try to bring Ingalls back to Singer River?
So I'm assuming you're referring to QuadMed.
Yeah, QuadMed, yeah.
There. Obviously the one challenge there is that when that was actually put out in RFP, it is in both Virginia and in Pascagoula.
Right.
And obviously the bandwidth for us to do that. But yes,
right.
It's something that we've actually talked about. I know Kerry Wilkinson has mentioned keeping care local. I will tell you that we work well with QuadMed.
Okay.
And Would we like to have a primary care center? Yes, absolutely. But they do utilize us for specialty services, and that downstream referral is actually critical. So we actually have, prior to COVID, we were actually there on a monthly basis, our CMO meeting with theirs to make sure that we take down any roadblocks that they had so they could get patients in quickly, and we'll continue to do that.
Because like I said, if we're gonna go into this other clinic stuff, then it would be good to have them on board with some of that available care too.
No, absolutely. And again, the way that we look at that, there's enough business here for everybody to do what we need to do to take care of our patients. So.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So now we'll turn to the capital budget, and so here's just kind of a summary, a dashboard that we have. There was all sorts of different budgets. Like every year, we have to make some hard decisions on what we're going to do. So just to orientate you, that very middle top 21.5 million is essentially where we landed from a capital budget perspective. We also do have that 3.9 in grant-related expenses, to where we expect to get grants to cover that amount. That's primarily made up of the Van Cleve Clinic, as well as we've got some grants to do some work in our ICUs as well. I did provide with the packet each one of you received the detail of the entire capital budget of those two numbers. It was, it's 6 pages long, so I really couldn't put it on the slide very neatly, but if you all have any questions about any of those, I'd be happy to answer them. But like I said, $21.5 million, there's a lot of items on that budget.
So all these pages add up to 21.457.
Yes, and I believe I included the 3.9 as well for the grant related at the very end. So yes, sir.
On your elimination of one-time dish and MHAP money, it was $14 million. Y'all received that in the current year?
You talking about the stuff for this year?
Well, was it in 2023? It was on your second, on your assumptions thing.
So you talked the first bullet?
Yes.
That was December and then the past few months.
Okay.
So December is when the $7 million for the dish liability for 2017 went away.
And that one, you get that in the income statement when they made that disappear. I got you.
Yes, that's correct.
And then the MHAP money?
May, June, July.
Remind me what that money was for again?
That was just the state of Mississippi provided hospitals additional MHAP funds with the lingering effects of COVID, essentially.
But that was just advanced, right?
No, we did receive some advance funds that we had to pay back. These are actual cash that we received that were just additional payment that we do not have to pay back.
I got you. And wasn't there some additional ARPA money or something the state was talking about sending out?
There's a hospital sustainability grant that we are still, I don't know if you all are aware, but there's been a lot of talk into the hospital community about, a lot of hospitals not actually meeting the qualifications just from all the other money that's been received. So that's one thing that we're studying very heavily now with all the other provider relief funds and ARPA funds, along with different COVID funds that we've received, on whether or not we truly qualify. But we hope to apply for that once we finish that analysis and make sure that we truly do. Right now we're kind of skeptical on whether or not we can submit an application for it. But that has not been budgeted. That has not been budgeted.
How much is outstanding with FEMA?
Gosh, we've got one project for like $16 million, and then we've submitted another over the very recently, I want to say, is another like $6 million, so it's over $20 million.
And those are things we've already paid.
Yes, that was for contract labor that we incurred during the pandemic.
So aren't we going to talk to our guy to talk to FEMA about?
Josh and I had some conversation with some staffers last week.
Okay. Oh, that's right, we did, yeah.
So what has happened with FEMA is we received around $3 million this year, and that was all for our PPE, gloves, masks, gowns, things like that. And they essentially said, if you had PPE expenses, we're good. We're not going to scrutinize it too. And now, obviously, we provided all the invoices and support, but they were very quick to pay the PPE funds and recognize that those were eligible. With the contract labor, there's been a lot more questions about, you know, whether or not they're going to allow it. How do you support it? Not from an invoice perspective. Obviously, we have all the invoices, but just whether or not that truly is going to meet the criteria. And they've actually brought in a company called the RAND Corporation to kind of run this process for them. So we've had to put together some pretty detailed analysis and narratives around our contract labor and submitted it to RAND. And I know last time that we met with our representatives that were helping us with this, both consultants and with FEMA, they said RAND hasn't really made any decisions yet how they're going to treat the contract labor portion.
I mean, what is even the argument? I mean, every healthcare system in the nation had to do contract labor for the emergency. I mean, there has to be an argument from the other side.
Well, I think one of the arguments is probably going to be billions of dollars. That's the only thing I can really come up with is I don't think that they quite realized how much hospitals had spent on all this stuff until they really started digging into it.
I know the question come up earlier of us owning the county owning the healthcare complex now. I mean, I think that was about an $800,000 savings to your budget based on previous rents compared to what y'all pay now.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Do we know, I mean, I read an article somewhere and it said 35 hospitals in Mississippi that are publicly owned are basically right on that teetering point of like true bankruptcy where they really would be gone. So to be where we are is actually remarkable to have weathered this storm at this level, but by no means does that mean we're in like stellar shape. I mean, $8 million excess margin is what, 1%?
That's, that is.
7 days cash on hand?
That's correct.
7 days cash on hand, maybe?
Sure.
Something like that. So, I mean, we're doing far better than we could be, but a lot of one-time money is making us float. Yeah, so we definitely need to be making the kind of changes that we need to tighten that up.
That's exactly why the budget you guys taking out those one times. We understand we have got to operate and be sustainable on our own revenue stream.
And we've still continued to work on all the initiatives that I discussed earlier as well as others. I mean, it's something that we are really striving to make sure that we meet all our obligations, not only to the debt and the pensioners, but being able to provide capital to the organization like we need to.
Well, and our capital is probably about half of what it really should be.
Well, the 21 million, you're starting to get closer. I think we're going to spend around $14 million in capital this year, if we meet our budget. And so, but when you look at the one times on the income statement, that $7 million for the dish liability, there was actually no cash associated with that. So now getting the $14 million from CMS, we should be about $7 million better from a cash perspective this year than we were last year. So that'll go to help with the additional capital spending to get us back to where we need from that perspective.
So on the outpatient revenue, is that still kind of flat, or is it seeing an uptick, due to the fact that some other doctors that have been doing some outpatient procedures are now coming to the hospital, from what I've been told? I mean, is that true, or?
Yeah, we continue to see an increase in our outpatient revenue, and we're seeing that decrease on the inpatient side. So
right.
Anytime you see that, inpatient pays a little more, so you got to become more efficient as you switch to that model, and that's what we're working on.
Right.
You mentioned the cyber attack a while ago.
Yes.
Any idea what it's going to cost you?
So again, Jason's actually working to quantify kind of what that looks like. But as he mentioned earlier, we get about our revenue stream's about 1.4 million a day, and so we're not billing currently. That's why I'm not being disrespectful. You guys are texting, trying to get some things accomplished, but. So we're not currently sending bills out of the door. We're still on paperwork. We've got war rooms at all 3 hospitals backfilling data, because if you get the insurance wrong, they're not going to bill you. They don't feel sorry for you. So, they're in the game of making money as well. So we're trying to make sure that we dot every I and every T. Will there be some misses? 100%. We miss it when we're on electronics. And so you're literally dealing with paper. Physicians have horrible signatures. We're trying to manage that. So it's literally going back to, the early 2000s with regards to getting these
Big
bills.
change.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming we got some additional expenses in next year for more cybersecurity. I know you already had it, but.
We're evaluating that as we speak, as we go through the forensics component of that. We will be beefing up some of our security. What you'll probably see is us taking some of those $21 million and shifting it over to some of the cyber security initiatives that come up.
Is it realistic to have dual systems so that
We
you
have
could,
dual systems.
so you could, and they got both of them?
Well, yes, and so again, it was a very, very sophisticated initiative. I mean, to be honest with you, that we actually talked to some a hospital that was out in California that 18 hospitals, they have multiple off-site backup storages. They got hit. They were down for 5 weeks. So I don't know if you can spend enough money to protect yourself, and obviously we're limited what we can, but I will tell you, I'll put our IT guys up against anybody that's out there. The fact that they got us back up as quick as we did, but we will learn some things that come out of this, and we're actually we're going to try to once we're back on our feet and we've got some of those lessons learned, we're probably going to be reaching out to some of the other local hospitals and say, hey, this is what we learned from this. You may want to consider that. Learn from them as well. So, but no, we don't have a true picture of what that will be, but it will have a negative impact. What we're hopeful is that November, December, we're going to be able to start seeing some of this cash come back in the door. But September is going to be it'll be tight.
September cash will be bad. I can guarantee you that.
Just trying to stay above that 65.
How much longer you think this is gonna last? Anybody got an idea?
So all of our network systems are backed up. What we're limiting on right now is just think of it those that are kind of connected to us via internet, Community Connect, so private practice groups that are actually on our Epic system. They should be backed up today. There will be basically dual authorization components. So y'all seen this when y'all log into something, it'll text you, enter in this security code, Apple TV, for example, anything like that. So that will be, it's going to be a workflow disruption to our physicians. I can assure you there'll be some complaints on that, but not near as many complaints as that you'll get if we get another cyber attack. So that'll be a beefed up security. That should go in place today, if not tomorrow. And then the other internet connections that we have, and a big one of that is actually getting our bills out of the door. So, we've got to make sure that we're tight when we connect those systems back.
So is Epic back up and running?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're not having to divert anymore? Oh, thank God. All right.
Y'all know the source of where it got in?
That's the forensics team. That's one of the outsourced companies that we got in literally 5 hours after it happened. They were on site and going through the chain that we should be able to tell.
Was it due to an operator or was it actually something they got in?
To be determined.
Okay.
We're literally, that's the reason for the forensics, so we can figure out exactly what happened and again, ultimately put in some additional steps to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Or the best part of it.
I've been caught fishing before on an email, so I know that.
We send out those test pilots all the time, so this one got through somehow. They're pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, I bet they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Irby, question, comment?
Go ahead.
No, for you.
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of this is over my head, but what little bit I do understand, it looks good to me. I mean, like I said, the hospitals across the United States are going down. You're close to laying off. And so, as long as I retire money paid, I'm happy.
Well, that's one thing I can say is It's not gonna come to that, but if it's between spending the $21 million or funding the bonds or the pension payments, we're gonna fund the bonds and the pension payments.
That was my next question to you, but you answered it before I could answer it.
And the bonds are pretty far down now, aren't they? What, around $40 million? Or?
No, they're still around, well, no, they are around 40-something million dollars, that's right. 'cause with
I
the
remember when
pension
we
and the
started this
bonds,
thing, they
they're
were around $100 million.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, anyone else, retiree representative here that would like to comment or ask a question?
Well, that's what we've been talking about with the cyber attack, so we've been working through that.
$3 million ransom or release.
Yes, I'll speak to that. So to be honest with you, again, he mentioned earlier talking about the NDA with regards to the sale of the hospital. We do have an ongoing investigation, to be honest with you. I can't really speak to that, but I tell you what, I can say we did not pay him. Okay.
The FBI is involved too with that investigation, correct?
That's true. Yeah, we've got FBI, a whole bunch of other initials. There's about 6 different.
Well, didn't this happen just last year? Same time?
Back in 2018, I believe it was.
I think it's been 5 years.
Yeah, but when you get a little last year.
Last 2 weeks seems like it's been about 4 years. So.
Come on, Mike, you ain't that old, come on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all, Jason.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we spread their budget over the minutes. Presentation over the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Bossarge to spread the presentation onto the minutes. We need a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Cumbus. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is item 10, action items, state and federal.
And I don't have an update for state, but on the federal side, just wanted to mention we did have some really good visits with the congressional staff last week. They met at our airport and we covered the airport master plan. We talked about the North Apron expansion, which we expect to get an earmark for on that. And we also talked about the contract tower, the tower being taken over by the feds and relieving us of having employees to man the tower out there, which will probably take a year for us to get to that point, but we're in the process of moving in that direction. We talked about a South Apron expansion too out there in the future. We did meet after that briefly in our office and with Matthew and others, and took them out to look at some resiliency projects that we're doing, some drainage projects, and talked about resiliency. We talked about the future of Go Mesa funds, and we talked about Corps of Engineer project funding going forward, and how that's focused on resiliency and how we're trying to align our studies and the things that we do to address resiliency, so it puts us in a better position to receive federal funds in the future. We did talk briefly about risk rating 2.0, the new insurance, flood insurance policies that are out there, and the impacts of that, and what strategies may be taken going forward to try to resolve some of those issues and at least bring some transparency to that program and see how we can better align our projects so that we take the most advantage of what discounts may be there through that new policy.
Yeah, and for Jason and Lauren, you'll probably see us, I mean, I'll copy you guys on some emails related to some of the staffers we talked to related to FEMA. I mean, I'm sure you guys are talking with them also, but just continuing to help, tell them how important that is to us, especially based on everything the hospitals have been through, for them to be sitting on that kind of money. I mean, we want to do everything we can to help y'all get those funds.
I'm sure y'all are okay with us sharing that with Georgia.
Sure.
Sure you didn't get any tornado damage from the tornado while they're doing some stuff?
Yeah.
That is it.
Okay, supervisor items, Mr. Cumbus,
I didn't have any.
Mr. Morris.
I don't have anything.
I have none. Mr. Ross?
None.
Mr. Bossard? Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session to determine if we need to have an executive session. Motion by Mr. Morris. I will second it. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We are in closed session.